Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to my science journey. I am Ruth Nanjala, and today we are privileged to be hosting Paballo. I'm so excited to host him because we've sort of like worked together on a few projects, and he's doing amazing work in the space of science communication. He's one of the people that I look up to in terms of like, communicating science, especially within the African continent. So we are glad to have you here today, Paballo. We look forward to hearing from you, and, getting to learn three or a few things from you. So before we start, I would just like to remind you that, this is my science journey. You can find us on all social media pages. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook. And we also have a YouTube, of course, where this is being streamed from. So if you haven't subscribed, and liked our page, this is your sign to do that right now. But welcome to today's session. I'm gonna start with an icebreaker for Paballo, and that will be, as he introduces himself, that will be like, what's one moment in your journey, because you've trained over 10,000 scientists and you've been able to reach approximately over 60,000 students. What's one moment that, has completely surprised you in your journey?
Oh, I think one moment. I think it's hard to come down to one moment. First of all, hello
Yeah.
Ruth, and hello to the My Science Journey people watching out there and people that are gonna watch it at a later point. I'm truly honored and privileged to be invited to such an amazing platform, and I think you guys are doing amazing work, and I can't wait to see how you grow. So yes, people subscribe, follow, and share with your friends as well, because I think they're doing quite important work for science in Africa, but also globally as well. So coming back to your question about what's one moment, I think there's perhaps many moments, but to pin it down to one would be difficult. I think it's just realizing that science is for everyone. Um, People are curious, people are inquisitive, people want to know more, but people also know already. There's something
Yeah.
about indigenous knowledge systems,
Yeah.
indigenous scientific ways of doing and of researching and of producing, not necessarily with the titles. So
Yeah.
people are not necessarily PhDs or masters, or they don't have the language that we use,
Yeah.
but they know. And I think it's sort of building a bridge between of the gap between this Western way of knowing
Yeah.
to old ways, traditional indigenous ways of doing science. And I think you find that with young people, you find that with children under 5, teenagers, people that are in their older ages, adults, also
Yeah.
old age as well. So I think people have different sort of levels of understanding and knowing science, but they do know something. So you're not going to an empty canvas when you paint. There's already
Yeah.
some color on it. There's
Yeah.
already some knowledge that exists.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. And before we proceed, just to remind people that if you have questions for Paballo, please type in the chat box. But before you do that, tell us where you're joining us from. So whether it's in Kenya, of course, I'm saying Kenya because I'm biased, or South Africa, or Uganda, or US, or UK, let us know where you're joining us from. Tell us your name and probably what excites you about my science journey. And then you can go ahead and put a question for Paballo in the chat. The earlier the better, because then we're gonna give you a chance to for Paballo to answer your question after the first 20 minutes or so. So if you have a question, start typing now. Right. So coming back to you, Paballo, I'm also curious for this because if you weren't working in science communication, because I've seen the passion and the energy you put in science communication, what other job would you be doing, or what would your dream job be?
Ooh, I think two jobs that I'd be
Okay.
doing. Because I
Okay.
think, by the way, I have a lot of interest, which is, I think, sometimes a challenge because they say, what is it? A jack of all trades is a master
Yeah.
of none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think we shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves as human
Yeah.
beings. I know medical doctors who are TV presenters, for example.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that because you are a doctor, you have to
Yeah.
only stay in the theater and
I
cut hearts
agree.
open. You can
Yeah.
do other things, I think so. I'd be a writer.
Okay.
So I'd be writing books.
Yeah.
traveling the world, talking
Okay.
about my books.
Okay.
So either fiction or autobiographies. So I guess it's still
Wow.
communication,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And the second one would be either a conservationist or
Yeah.
adventurer. So like I'd
Mhm.
be hiking up Mount
Ooh.
Everest and flying from the
Yeah.
skydiving,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
ocean diving to see sharks,
Wow.
or working as a conservationist at a
Yeah.
national park,
Yeah.
protected area somewhere in the world, saving
Yeah.
animals because I
Yeah.
love nature. I love
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd be doing other, if I wasn't doing science communication or
Yeah. That
training or
is
education, I'd
what
be
you'll
doing
be
those.
doing. Well, I actually feel like you are actually you could be doing this as well, because in as much as especially with the writing stuff, I feel like you're already doing a lot of that, even though it's not official. But yeah, I feel like it's exciting that you could actually make a career out of these things because you're so good at like each of them. And hiking. Have you been to Kenya before you go to Everest? You need to do Mount Kenya
Like
first.
in Kenya once more, your favorite country. So I've
Yeah,
visited Kenya, but I haven't hiked up the
yeah,
beautiful mountains yet. So I think one day Tanzania, Kenya, I want to
yeah.
go to Mount Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
So
Yeah,
interested
Kilimanjaro.
into doing that.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get into the science bit. So, you have managed science communication in different spaces. There's been the H3 Africa program, which is Human Hereditary and Health in Africa. There is now the DSI Africa Data Science in Africa project, and you're also part of the African Society for Human Genetics. What are challenges that keep coming across, these networks in the space of science communication?
Ooh, I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'll mention a few. I
Yeah.
think one of the sad things is that we work, by the way, those different organizations that you mentioned, H3 Africa, African Society of Human Genetics, and DSA Africa, are doing such amazing science
Yeah.
for Africa and for the world. Because I think
Yeah.
for too long, Africa has been left behind in terms of
Yeah.
genomics, data science, and science in general. And I
Yeah.
think those three particular institutions are at the forefront of
Yeah.
leading scholarship, research,
Yeah.
policy making, and impact in the science space. So I
Yeah.
think kudos to them.
Yeah.
Kudos to everyone who's involved, from the early career researchers to the principal investigators to the
Yeah.
funders who are making this possible. I just
Yeah.
want to say kudos to them. But I think one of the main challenges is that some people still have I don't want to say
Mm.
outdated way of thinking, but old way of understanding how to do science, where they
Yeah.
think you go to the field or you're in the lab and you sequence something
Yeah.
and you analyze the data and you publish in Nature or
Yeah.
one of the high ranked journals, and that's it. Or you write
Yeah.
a book and you put it in the library and that's it. And
Yeah.
you only go to certain prestigious conferences to present your work.
Yeah.
But people are not willing to actually break it down and simplify it for the
Yeah.
public. So there's still a lack of thinking that science communication is not important,
Yeah.
that people are not carving a way for it, where they don't want
Yeah.
to speak to journalists, they don't want
Yeah.
to be on social media. I think
Yeah.
I was shocked in 2018 when I had to give a workshop to some people at SJ Bionet to say,
Yeah.
this is how you create
Mm.
An X account, formerly
Yeah.
Twitter,
Yeah.
because they didn't have it. And it's not because
Yeah.
they are not tech savvy. They are tech
Yeah.
savvy, but they just
Yeah.
think it's
Not
rudimentary,
for
it's
them. Yeah. It's
useless, it's
not.
not for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you understand how a lot of misinformation, a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
dangerous lies are
Yeah.
being spread by non-scientists on social media because
Yes.
real scientists are not speaking up. Real
Yes.
scientists are not
Yes.
creating accounts to say, hey, I'm
Yes.
going to raise my hand and say, by the way, vaccines work.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
the cure for this exists, or
Yeah.
a cure for this doesn't exist, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? These are the findings. This is the
Yeah.
evidence to
Yeah.
counter the misinformation and
Yeah.
disinformation, which is very viral at points as well. So I think the challenge is getting people to take science communication seriously
Seriously.
and
Yeah.
know that it's also for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like you're saying, to counter the misinformation, especially now that we are in a digital era where, we have an influx of information from left, right, center. And even now, someone can just easily ask Google, okay, I have, headache, can you tell me what, disease I have? But because we don't have like real scientists to say, okay, this is what is happening, this is what you shouldn't be doing, people will just take that. Or even like we have a lot of celebrities that are trying to, be science experts when they don't know anything about science, but because they have masses and because, like you're saying, we don't have scientists that are out sharing their work, people just, take in what they're saying for, as the gospel truth. So I totally agree with you that African scientists in particular need to actually take science communication seriously. And even while we are speaking about that, Paballo, especially in the African context, what unique opportunities, considering these challenges, do you think we have from the African context in terms of like driving innovation in the space of science communication?
Okay, great question, Ruth. Thank you so much for that. I think Africa is very diverse in terms
Yeah,
of culture, in terms of genetics, genetic variation, in terms of language, in terms of history. And I think for far too long we've been excluded from, we didn't have a seat at the table.
yeah,
And I think even now, we're not yet at the table. I wouldn't say, I think there's a chair in the room
yeah.
where the table is. We are not yet at the table,
Okay, okay.
right? So
Yeah,
we are not, I think some of us are on the chair in the room in
in
the
the room, but not
background,
at the
but
table.
we haven't pulled it up to the table yet. So
Yeah,
again, because of painful history that we faced as a
yeah,
continent, because of lack of resources, because of lack of funds, because of lack of knowledge, etc., we still are yet to be on the table.
yeah,
And I think that gives us scope for there's a huge market. There's
yeah,
a huge opportunity to be innovative in how we tell our story. Because
yeah,
science is a story. So there's
yeah,
a quote by Stuart Hall that says, identities are the names that we give to the different ways we are positioned by and position ourselves in the
yeah,
narratives of the past. And
yeah,
that's because as people, as Africa, as scientists, we are storied selves. And science is a story. In fact, it's many stories, not
yeah,
just one story. And I think the African continent has a piece of story that hasn't been told or
yeah,
has been told in a negative way.
yeah,
Or you know what I mean? So I think we can retell,
yeah,
re-envision, and
yeah,
reimagine who we
yeah,
are using science, in using
yeah.
science communication. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for young researchers like yourself, Ruth,
Yeah,
and myself, and
yeah,
upcoming ones that are doing their undergrad right now to
yeah.
say, how can we tell a story about Africa that we want to be
Mm,
the story of Africa? Because there's a danger of a single story, as Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie says,
mm,
that has been
absolutely.
told about Africa, that we are the dark continent, that we are
Yeah,
not smart enough, that we
yeah,
don't know what we are doing. And we do know what we are doing. And I
yeah,
think we're proving that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to be inventive and innovative in how we
yeah.
tell the story of Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I'm not going to add anything to that so that we can give people more time to ask questions. And speaking about questions, again, welcome to our audience today. If you have a question for Paballo, please start typing in the chat right now. I will get to it as soon as possible. But yeah, I would love to hear from you and also tell us where you're joining us from in terms of like the country and your name as well. So Paballo, before we continue, most people know you as a training coordinator for the at the Welcome Connecting Science, but can you maybe summarize what that sort of like involves in terms of like, I don't want to put it in a day in the life of Paballo or a week, but maybe in summary, what do you do as a training coordinator?
Hey, thank you so much, Ruth. So I work for the Wellcome Sanger Institute, especially the Genomic Surveillance Unit, where we work with different diseases. Um, COVID was, by the way, the institution that I work for was very key in analyzing and sequencing of COVID samples during the peak of the pandemic,
Pandemic,
2020,
yeah,
2020 and 2021. Like, I
yeah,
think there was about 70,000 samples that were sequenced where I
yeah,
work a
yeah,
week. So I
yeah,
think over 2 million samples were sampled in those 2 years or something.
yeah, Yeah.
So there are people that work in COVID. I work in malaria right now.
Yeah.
So I work in the parasite
Yeah.
and vector teams. We do
Yeah.
genomic surveillance of those.
Yeah.
So we are trying to eradicate malaria in our lifetime. However,
Yeah.
I work in the education part of things. So
Yeah.
organizing workshops, organizing hackathons,
Yeah.
training, running the Bioinformatics Fellowship Program,
Yeah.
conferences, collaborating with partners across the world, particularly in Africa,
Yeah.
to ensure that we work together to curb and fight malaria, because I believe we can eradicate malaria in a lifetime. And
Yeah.
I'm doing the educational training aspect of it by
Yeah.
collaborating with different teams from
Yeah.
across the world
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, it's I think it's a long answer, but it's a lot
Yeah.
of collaboration, a lot of
Yeah.
strategic partnerships, a lot
Yeah.
of science communication,
Yes.
even
Yes.
in that.
Absolutely.
So science
Absolutely.
communication cuts across all
Yeah.
fields.
Everything. Yeah, I'm sorry. Initially, I think I said Welcome Connecting Science instead of Welcome Sanger Institute. But I think what I wanted you to also emphasize on is on your work, the work you do also with like students in the UK as well, in terms of bridging the gap in science communication.
Okay, so I think so. No need to apologize about. So, Welcome Connecting Science is also at the Sanger campus or the whole genome campus as well. So we collaborate with them as well. And I
Yeah.
usually do science engagement by
Mhm.
collaborating with Welcome Connecting Science and
Yeah.
engagement. So
Yeah.
you were not far off on that.
Yeah.
So for instance, for this year on the 4th
Yeah.
of July, I
Yeah.
gave a keynote speech
Yeah.
at the school conference that was organized by the Welcome Connecting Science and Engagement team,
Yeah.
where about 200 year 10 pupils or students came to
Yeah.
campus at the conference hall
Yeah.
to learn more about DNA, about science, about genomics, about the
Mm.
work that we do on
Yeah.
campus. So I presented on the work that I do as a training coordinator to those students
Yeah.
on malaria, on mosquitoes, on why mosquitoes are the most dangerous animals in the world. And they were very intrigued.
Yeah.
They were young people, about 13 years old, 14 years old, but they
Yeah.
were asking really good questions.
Questions.
They were
Yeah.
really engaged. So I do
Yeah.
such work where I go around different schools in
Yeah.
the UK to also
Yeah.
make sure that we mentor and we
Yeah.
inspire and
Yeah.
motivate future
Yeah.
scientists, right? Because I
Yeah.
think for some young people, especially now with the uptake of content creation and social
Yeah.
media, which is very
Yeah.
positive, but sometimes people think
Yeah.
they want to be famous, they want
Yeah.
to, you know what I mean, they want to dance on TikTok all their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
gonna be in the lab studying
Exactly.
coding?
It was gonna be a
Who's gonna
scientist.
do bioinformatics? Who's
Yeah.
gonna cure, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
cancer if all
Yeah.
of us wanna be in front of the camera
On TikTok.
dancing? And there's nothing wrong with that
Yeah.
because I also dance
Yeah.
in front of the camera. But we
Yeah.
need scientists. I think it's going to underprivileged townships
Yeah.
or areas where people don't believe that science is for them because either they come from a poor background or
Mm.
they're POC or they are women or they
Mm.
occupy a certain identity where previously they've been told science is not for them. That
Yeah.
listen, young black boy,
Yeah.
listen, young black girl, you can
Yeah.
be a scientist. You can
Yeah.
be Dr. Nanjala one day.
Eh. Yes.
So yeah, it's just inspiring the next generation.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that with other scientists across campus where we travel, but also bring them to campus to do that as well.
And I do love that the work that you do with the students. And I was just trying to think how, back in the continent, how this can be picked up as well, where you go and speak to students that are still in school, because I think during the school year time is one of the time when people, are trying to make a decision on, like you said, on what they want to do with their careers. So I was just thinking, is there a way, or do you know of, people or programs that are sort of like doing the same kind of work back in the continent, or yeah.
I think there are lots of people doing work on the ground in Africa.
Yeah.
So I think, for example, when you spoke about how I presented to 60,000
Yeah.
students,
Yeah.
it was in South Africa during the Science Festival
Yeah.
Africa
Yeah.
Forum in
Yeah.
2021, I think,
Yeah.
um, in the Eastern Cape, where there were 60,000 young children that came to learn about science.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, so they do that every year, by the way. So I haven't
Yeah.
been there in 5 years or so because I've moved. I'm
Yeah.
currently in the UK. But I think I'm glad that I still do work with Africans as well. But there are people that are still in Africa that are doing that work on a daily basis as well. But SciFest, for instance, runs annually for a week, and about 60,000 people come to that festival.
Yeah.
The main thing there was a language barrier. So
Yeah.
in Africa, there's about 2,000 languages or
Mhm.
more.
Mhm.
In my country, South Africa, there's over 11 official languages.
Yeah.
So English is not a first language for a lot of people. So if you go to schools,
Yeah.
primary schools or high schools, and you
Yeah.
speak in English, sometimes
Yeah.
there's a wall between you
Yeah.
and the audience that you're trying to educate or inspire. So I
Yeah.
think leaning into your target audience and knowing what language they speak and getting a translator,
Yeah.
getting, you know what I mean, someone to narrate on your behalf if you can't speak a certain language will go a
Yeah.
long way in
Yeah.
addressing certain issues. So yeah, so
Yeah.
I think there are people that are on the ground doing the work. It's
Yeah.
just about us making sure that we meet people where they are.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I wanted you to actually highlight that so people are actually aware that there's programs like this that are running, and they can sort of like come together and collaborate in pushing for such projects back in the continent, especially in terms of like I don't want to say fixing, but in terms of like the language barrier aspect for many African countries. And so while we're talking about SciFest Africa and the science festival you did in South Africa, we also aware you also run conversations with Chauke. I don't know whether I'm butchering your name. Is there a story that you've told that continues to resonate with you, and why?
Ooh, as I said, science
Yeah,
is many stories.
yeah,
Um, I think the story of how malaria is curable,
yeah,
preventable, and treatable,
yeah,
how every minute a child dies from malaria, but that doesn't have to be the case.
yeah,
How you don't have to be a scientist in the lab to help us fight malaria. And I
yeah,
think Africa bears the brunt of the disease.
yeah,
So I think it's about people using their voices on social media, putting pressure on their governments,
yeah,
putting pressure on funders to say malaria is one of the oldest diseases,
yeah,
one of the oldest and deadliest diseases in the world. And I think I've seen stories of malaria being eradicated. Like last year, Egypt eradicated malaria,
mm,
Cape Verde eradicated malaria.
yeah,
So malaria can be eradicated. And I think
yeah,
we can see a malaria-free world in our lifetime. We
yeah,
just need to put our resources, voices
yeah,
together to fight that. So I think using my own platform, either LinkedIn or Twitter or my column that I write or my podcast, it's important to repeat that message to say we all can be part of the solution to ending and eradicating malaria in our lifetime. Zero malaria is possible.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'm just gonna take you back to the conversation about supporting scientists, especially back in the continent. I know we talked about like the language aspect, but are there specific tools or platforms or training approaches that you found more effective in building scientists' confidence that you feel could be implemented, especially back in the continent?
So I think my approach is collaborative pedagogical approaches,
Mm.
where if there's a conference, it's asking for a space to run a workshop, an interactive workshop, where I take up my laptop, I log into my Twitter, my rather X, sorry,
Yeah,
my LinkedIn, my Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or whatever platform, ResearchGate, because there's so many professional and also social media
yeah,
um, influencing social media sites that you can use where you show people, because I think sometimes people are scared,
yeah,
or some of them they grew up in a generation where these things were not around. Because I think I have a nephew who's like what 15 or something.
yeah,
When he was born, social media existed, but some of us were born when social media was not around, right? Social
yeah,
media found us while we were growing. For some
yeah.
people, they were already older when social media came around. So it's
Yeah.
about debunking the myths around what social media is by showing them, but
Yeah,
also by not assuming that, because I mean, hey, there are professors, there are PIs, those definitely they are smart. They might not know about X or LinkedIn or what
Yeah.
YouTube, for instance,
Yeah.
but they're very smart. They've
Yeah.
produced knowledge before, but it's about showing them how can you break down the complex jargon, the
Yeah.
complex science into simple ways, into
Mhm.
nuggets of information that you can put in 40 characters or into bite-sized 30-second videos on YouTube just to teach people about whatever infectious disease you're studying, whatever you know what I mean, DNA you are analyzing, whatever science, piece of science you're doing that is so complex
Yeah.
that only you or a few people know about that. How can you make the public do the IAEOU
Mm.
awareness? How can you make them aware?
Mhm.
Enjoyment, how can you make them enjoy what you're talking about?
Mhm.
um Interest, how can you make them interested in your topic? Opinion
Mhm.
forming, how can you make them form an opinion on your piece of work? And
Mhm.
understanding, how
Yeah.
can you make them understand? Because I think some of us are so smart
Yeah.
that when we write and when we speak about our work, only one or two people can understand us. And I
Yeah.
think that's not a good thing, because I think
Yeah.
it was Einstein who said if you
Yeah.
understand something, you can make it simple.
Yeah.
Simplify your work.
Yeah.
It's not that people are stupid. It's not that people don't know. It's not
Yeah.
that people don't understand what you're saying. So if
Yeah.
you can follow the five vowels that I mentioned,
Yeah.
I think scientists can use those as a sort of tool and formulation to ensure that they can be good at science communication.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're gonna put that on the chat so that you can remember that even as you browse through the catalog. And thank you for sharing those vowels, Paballo. And while we are still speaking about, how to translate science into, impact. And particularly because we are targeting the young scientists or the youth or the upcoming generation, what do you think young people need to sort of like fall in love with science?
Ooh, exposure.
Yeah.
Exposure. I think if you have access to a lab,
Yeah.
either, and you don't have to do it with a million people. It's
Yeah.
just going to one young person where you either they either requested or their parents did. Um, Maybe they said they're 15 or they're 20 at varsity first year and they're still shaky about science. But
Mm,
I think it's important to catch them while they're still young, first of all.
mm, mm.
It's about planting the seed while they're still 5 years old, 6 years old. It's about showing them, like, I think there's a nice activity that you can do at home, or
Mm.
even when you go to schools where you take a strawberry and you crush it, or a banana and you crush it, and you mix it with vinegar and some liquid soap to extract DNA. So it's about showing them that even though you don't have the fancy MySeq, Illumina,
Yeah.
um, you know what I mean? You can do science in your own house, in your kitchen, using the ingredients that are in the kitchen. It's about planting that curiosity, exposing them. But then, as I said, it's about inviting them to the lab as well,
Yeah.
showing them that it's not far-fetched. It's not something that is in space where they have to fly across the world to access it. If you are in an area where you can bring young people, either for a day or two, to
Yeah.
just see and shadow you for a day at work or in your classroom,
Yeah.
just to show them that science is relatable,
Yeah.
science is understandable,
Yeah.
and that if they work hard, they can also become scientists. I think exposure is the underlying word that I will use.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that because I think a lot of times what we miss is exposure, and maybe sometimes that is what it takes to actually, get someone to be like, yeah, by the way, so yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna take a break from asking my question and ask a question from the audience. So we have Lillian from Kenya, and Lillian says, did you always know you wanted to go into science communication, or was there a pivotal moment that made you realize this was your path? That's the first question. And then maybe let's answer the first one first.
Ooh, tough question. The answer is no. I think I found, so I didn't always know that I want to go into science communication. I think I saw a gap
Yeah.
Um, and then I realized I have the skills, the personality, the passion to fill it. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's about looking at the world or looking at your field, where
Mm.
you work or where you're exposed to say,
Yeah.
I think this is missing.
Yeah.
I think there's a disconnect or there's a gap somewhere where I can make money, I can make an impact. So it's also not just about money, but I'm sorry, money is nice. Um,
Yeah.
but it's about impact as well. I can make a difference. I
Yeah.
can make an impact.
Yeah.
But also it's nice to, be paid while doing it.
Yeah.
But I think it's about recognizing what are you passionate about, what
Yeah.
are you good at, what is needed. And I
Yeah.
think in my case, it was all those three factors that sort of collided.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I was sort of working around and working in bioinformatics and
Yeah.
science in general, and I realized that there's a huge disconnect because, for instance, bioinformatics is still quite new in Africa.
Yeah.
A lot of people where I come from, I was trying to explain what I do or what field I work in, and they
Yeah.
didn't understand. And I was like,
Mm.
what's needed to ensure that these people that I'm talking to at home, my mother, my grandmother, my friends, my
Yeah.
my my community, and
Yeah.
obviously just by that it's a metaphor for the broader community that's not part of the minute
Yeah.
field. How do you ensure that you communicate what you do to them nicely?
Yeah.
And then science communication became a thing for me, and I've been in
Yeah.
this for more than a decade now, and I'm
And
still
yeah,
around.
and you're doing incredibly amazing in it as well, winning at it. So that's
Humbled, Ruth. Thank you.
yeah. And maybe Lillian just made me think that we probably didn't give people a background about you. So we just dived into where you are or what you're doing currently. So maybe you could share a brief background of how you got into science communication. I mean, you've already said about, how you got into it, but what were you doing before?
Okay, so I've had an interesting background and trajectory, career trajectory. So my background is in nature conservation. So I studied undergraduate honors in environmental geographical science. Um, yeah, so atmospheric science and whatnot. Clouds, rocks, because I did geology there as well.
Yeah.
And then I then did my MSc in nature conservation because I wanted to save rhinos. I still
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But then somehow, somewhere, I realized that I'm passionate about genomics and bioinformatics.
Yeah.
So did short courses and whatnot. And I went into bioinformatics training
Yeah.
and coordination. Yeah, worked in genomics and now work in malaria as well. So have a
Yeah.
bit of a interesting background. And I think what you study shouldn't limit what you do.
Exactly. That's what
Um,
I wanted you to actually highlight. Yeah.
yeah, I think pivoting is okay and is to
Yeah.
be expected because I think it's okay also if you study accounting and you want to be an accountant. But
Yeah.
just because you studied Bachelor of Accounting doesn't mean you must be stuck with an
Yeah.
Excel sheet balancing the numbers. You
Yeah.
can do something that's completely different.
Yeah.
I think I'm pro interdisciplinarity,
Mm.
where we all can melt into each other and
Yeah.
merge fields and study fields and
Yeah.
whatnot, because I think the world is complex.
Yeah.
I think thinking in silos is
Mm.
how the world is so disconnected. And I think I always see connections. And I think that's why I love the liberal arts system, where in the US particularly, where even if you want to be a medical doctor, you
Yeah.
will study sociology, you will
Yeah.
study arts.
Yeah.
Even if you want to be an engineer, you will study
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah.
Because then they want to ensure that, because I think if you notice, I'm going to use architecture as an example where that's
Yeah.
like a very hardcore engineering field. But if
Yeah.
you don't do social sciences, you
Yeah.
will build things that don't
Yeah.
serve society.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you're a scientist who works in the lab and you
Yeah.
want to cure diseases or research
Yeah.
diseases, if you don't understand histories of the world, for instance, I did work with an Oxford PhD student where we
Yeah.
went around South Africa collecting samples.
Yeah.
And for those people who we were collecting samples for, historically they were oppressed by a racist system, but
Yeah.
also they believe in witchcraft. So we were
Mm.
asking for blood samples and spit. And for
Yeah.
them,
Yeah. Be like
so
what? Good.
So if you are only a lab-based person and you don't understand that people believe in witchcraft, how
Yeah.
do you then make sure that you can explain to them that no, 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 I'm not gonna bewitch you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe in pivoting.
Yeah.
Don't box yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever you study doesn't have to limit what you do. The
Yeah.
world is your oyster.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we have a few more questions, but maybe just finishing the question from Lillian. What shaped your voice as a science advocate?
Ooh, what shaped my voice as a science advocate? Shamelessness and
Yeah,
taking up space.
I
I
love that.
think a lot
Yeah.
of us are scared or intimidated when we walk into the room, either
Mm,
because someone, and by the way, I think I respect anyone and everyone, whether you are a professor who has 20 PhDs and has
yeah.
been in the field for 100 years,
Yeah.
or you are a 7-year-old who doesn't understand what DNA stands for. I
Yeah.
respect all of you. All right.
Yeah.
I don't, so I think I respect people, but I think some of us,
Yeah.
either because of culture or because of background,
Yeah.
are intimidated when we walk
Yeah.
and see someone who's Professor
Yeah.
Chauke, and it's like, oh, I must hide, I can't
Yeah.
look them directly in the eye. I have
Yeah.
to shake when I speak to show that I respect them. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes that being scared and being worried what other people might think of us, um, people might perceive us that we are not as smart as we think we are, or as smart as we are actually. Imposter
Yeah.
syndrome,
Yeah.
thinking that we don't belong, either because we are the only ones that look like us in a certain space. Where for
Yeah.
some of us, we travel the world, we study in Europe, we study in America, we study in Asia, and you stand out like a sore thumb. Either
Yeah.
you're the only black person, you're the only woman, you're the only African, you're the only
Yeah.
young person. I think
Ah,
take up space,
yes.
be shameless. Obviously, yes, respect people, but I
Yeah.
think respect goes both ways.
Yeah.
Respect doesn't mean I must disrespect myself, that I
Yeah.
must silence myself, that
Yeah.
I must police myself.
Yeah.
Speak up, speak
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
take charge of the space that you're in. Your
Absolutely.
voice matters. So I think for me, yeah, those two things, shamelessness and just
It's taking up space.
taking up space, cementing
I
yourself.
love that. I love that. I love that. And like you've clearly shown what it actually means, like in reality and not just in theory. So if you don't know about Paballo's work, you need to Google him. Anyway, so we have a question from Emily. What aspect of malaria do you communicate mostly on? Do you also communicate other cases of tropical infections?
So for my case, it's mostly malaria that I'm focusing on. And obviously, I work with the parasite and vector teams. So it's about genomic surveillance of those two. So just communicating it either with other scientists or non-scientists as well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. And then Francis asks, what are your thoughts in training young researchers on science communication? This is not usually in most university curriculums.
And I think it should be. It should be in most university curriculum. So there are degrees now,
Mm,
particularly for science communication. But I think similar to the liberal arts curriculum, I
mm,
think science communication needs to be a module, needs to be a
mm,
course that you do in undergrad,
mm.
in postgrad,
Yeah,
where yes, you are in the lab most of the time and you are doing amazing sequencing or whatever you're doing.
yeah,
But I think how are you going to communicate this complex work
yeah.
that you're doing? This thing that, because you know how most of us believe when we're doing our PhDs and we do are going to change the world. How are you going to
Exactly.
communicate it though? Yes,
Yeah,
you're finding a new variant
yeah,
of
yeah,
whatever, or you're
yeah,
finding a cure, but how are
yeah,
you gonna make sure that not 100 people know? Like, how are you gonna make sure that if Oprah Winfrey invites you
yeah,
on TV, Oprah's not a scientist
yeah,
and she's very smart and very
yeah,
famous. How can
yeah,
you piggyback on her fame when she invites you on a show to actually
yeah,
talk about your work in such a way that a 10-year-old and a 50-year-old at home will be
yeah.
able to say, "Ha, so
Mm,
that's how this disease spreads.
mm,
Ha,
yeah,
that's how you prevent it."
yeah,
Without making them feel dumb,
Yeah.
without making them having to Google or anything like that. So I think
Yeah.
science communication is ample. There
Yeah.
are workshops, there are free courses on Udemy, and I'm not gonna promote all the other online platforms,
Yeah.
but they exist. So I
Yeah.
think take it up, learn, but also if it doesn't exist in your own university, be the change that you want to see. Either
Yeah.
start one if you are
Yeah.
passionate about science communication, or
Yeah.
encourage your university to platform it. Invite speakers, facilitators, science communicators to come give short courses for a week or two to say, how do we concisely, succinctly, effectively communicate our science
Yeah.
with the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Lillian has another question, which is, your background is very interesting. I wonder how you navigated the change. Did you have mentors to guide you, or how did you navigate that change on your own?
I didn't repeat. How did I navigate?
So your background is very interesting. I wonder how you navigated the change. So in particular, did you have mentors to guide you, like, navigate the change in sort of like the way you moved from conservation to genomics and now in like malaria? So did you have mentors, or how did you navigate it on your own?
Okay. Thank you for that question, Lillian. No one is an island. None of us are self-made. I think um, I believe in if you want to go fast, go alone.
Yeah,
If you want to go far, go together. I stand on the shoulders of giants. I think some of them are my science journey speakers. I'm not going to mention their names, they know themselves.
yeah,
That if you watch, please go and watch all the My Science Journey videos so that you can see some of them. Have been either directly or indirectly mentors. Some of them don't know. I just look
yeah,
up to them without saying anything. But there are some who I've sat down with them to say, hey,
yeah,
my question is one, two, three, or how do I navigate 4, 5, 6?
yeah,
Ask for help.
yeah.
We have a saying in South Africa that says,
Mm.
"Ngwana sa leng o tswala tharing."
Mhm.
Translation, I'm gonna directly translate. So if
Yeah,
I don't know if you know a child, English is not my mother tongue. There's a
yeah,
thing that you use to carry a child.
yeah. It's
Um,
like the lesso, some
the
or
nestle. So
yeah,
a child, so usually in the past, there
yeah,
were children who, this saying comes from this, who would be in the nestle and not cry at all. And some moms would be like, oh, my child is so well behaved, they don't cry. And then
yeah,
when they turn around, the child is dead sometimes or
yeah,
unwell. So
yeah,
that saying says, if you don't cry,
yeah,
you will suffer. If you
yeah,
don't speak up, you will suffer.
yeah,
We are not, none, yes, we are all smart and we all can make it in life, but we need guidance, we need mentorship.
yeah,
So I haven't been alone on this journey. There's been a lot of people
yeah,
that have assisted me, that continue to
yeah,
assist me. So yes, I'm confident and I fight imposter syndrome and all of that, but I'm also someone who is part of a community of thinkers, of scientists, scholars, and kind people that give of their time voluntarily and otherwise to say, Paballo, we see potential in you
yeah,
and we think you can be the next 1, 2, 3, and
yeah,
these are the steps. So I think sometimes you don't need to make the same mistakes that your
yeah,
predecessors made.
yeah,
You can hear from them and they can guide you. So Lillian, none of us are Allens, none of us are silos. Ask for help. Go to LinkedIn, stalk people, add them, ask them to mentor you.
yeah,
That's how we make it. That's
yeah,
how we make it in
absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. No man is an island. Right, Paballo, so as we wrap up, I'm just gonna ask a few last questions. And the first one would be, what is one assumption about science in Africa that you feel like you're constantly challenging in your work?
I think that Africans are not good scientists,
Mm,
that Africans need, so I think there's something about helicopter science
mm,
where Western scientists and funders and whatever come to Africa and it's like a helicopter. You drop, you take the
yeah,
data or the samples, and then you go away and then you
yeah,
analyze it elsewhere with the
mhm,
help from elsewhere.
yeah,
That we can't do it on our own. And
yeah,
I think if we were to be given the opportunity, if we were to be given the money, science
Yeah.
needs money.
Yes.
So if you think science needs millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we can get funding, if
Yeah.
people can have faith in us to
Yeah.
say, because we are smart. Because
Yeah.
why are we going to Oxford and Harvard and
Yeah.
Yale and Princeton as Africans and
Yeah.
becoming top students
Yeah.
and becoming PIs? It's because we can do it.
Yeah.
We can even do it in Africa as well. It's just that we don't have
Yeah.
the resources. So I
Yeah.
think that stereotype and sort of undermining of African scientists' capabilities needs to
Mm,
stop
yeah.
because we are smart, we are creative,
Yeah.
and yeah, we are giants that can help the world change the story about African science, as I said earlier as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And where can people follow your work? For example, Conversations with Chauke.
Ooh, so I'm mostly now active on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
Twitter. Although Twitter, I have issues with sometimes because of
Mm.
certain things about who's running it now. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be political, but I'm there as well.
Yeah.
I also write columns
Yeah.
for the Mail and Guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's connect on LinkedIn and on Twitter.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like sharing opportunities. One of my
Mm.
passions is
Yeah.
ensuring that I share funding,
Yeah.
scholarship, and otherwise opportunities, particularly for Africans.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think sometimes people don't get things not because they can't, but because they don't know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just making them aware.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
connect,
Yeah.
and let's take African science and science communication forward.
Amen. So be it. Yeah, so be it. Yeah, and yeah, as you've heard from Paballo, you can follow him on LinkedIn and Twitter. He's Paballo Chauke. If you follow our pages, you'll see that we have tagged him, so you don't have to stress looking around for his handles, so you can easily just connect from our page. And lastly, Paballo, if you could see one underreported science story from Africa make global headlines, what would that be?
Ooh, okay, that's a tough one. I'm like, okay, so but then I guess I'll use malaria again.
Yeah,
I think there are groups of young people on the
yeah,
continent
yeah,
that are the voices,
yeah,
malaria champions, we call them,
yeah,
that are working to fight malaria,
yeah,
using their voices, protesting, campaigning,
yeah,
speaking out and saying malaria can end in our
yeah,
generation because it doesn't have to be that every minute a child dies from malaria. So I think there are many science stories in Africa, but
yeah,
I think it's people that are on the ground
yeah,
that are making a difference. That some of them will never get an invite to a show or be on TV or on a newspaper, but are actually doing the groundwork and
yeah,
making the difference that we need to see.
yeah. Well, thank you so, so much, Paballo. I personally have enjoyed having this conversation with you, and I am sure everyone that has joined live today. And so, thank you so much for taking your time and for sharing your journey and giving us insights on this science communication space. We hope that, people can keep championing for science communication, especially in the African continent, so that we can avoid the danger of telling one story like you mentioned, Paballo. So thank you so much. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of our My Science Journey session today, featuring Paballo Chauke, who's a training coordinator at the Wellcome Sanger Institute. Make sure to follow us. And if you haven't subscribed and you've gotten to this point, please, I don't know what you're waiting for. So subscribe and share. We have a couple of other videos that we've done before. You can also go through that catalog if you haven't yet, and so that you can get to learn from the science journey of African scientists across the entire world. And so with that, I say thank you so much for joining us today, and goodbye. Okay, you've ended the stream.
Is it off now? Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's
No,
off now. It's
thank
off
you so
now.
much.